Jesus opens up with a proverb. And we don't know where that proverb comes from exactly, but we can assume that the people who are listening to Jesus are familiar with it. And he's kind of setting them up because we already know that they're expecting Jesus to do something big, some kind of big, important miracle. Because they had heard that Jesus had already done something big. And Luke doesn't record it, at least not in that order, because we know about it in Mark chapter 1. Jesus is confronting this guy with an unclean spirit or a demon of some kind. And it's a really important story because this demon or unclean spirit recognizes who Jesus is. They're saying, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to destroy us? We know who you are. You're the Holy One of God. In other words, you're the Messiah. You're the one that the people of God have been waiting for a very long time. So, regardless, Jesus is right now teaching and speaking in front of people who knew him growing up. So he says, a prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. This is kind of like a familiarity breeds contempt or something like that. To be honest, I don't know exactly why Jesus is saying this, but we do get a sense that the expectation of the people who are staring at Jesus and waiting for him to do big things versus what Jesus is willing to do are very different. And because of that, he's about to irritate a lot of people. Now, did you catch the connection between the old stories that Jesus is pulling from and the current situation? The widow of Zarephath and Naaman the Syrian have one thing in common. They were not Israelites. They were not people of the covenant. They were not descended from Abraham. And yet God uh, miraculously helped or healed both of them, but nobody else. So it's like all the inside crowd that follows God uh, didn't receive the help that they needed from God, whereas these outsiders did. And even worse, like Naaman the Syrian, he probably spent a good chunk of his career overseeing border raids from Syria into Israelite territory. There is no reason why God should have helped him or miraculously healed him. In other words, Jesus is saying, hey, at that time, God helped those people, but he didn't help us. And he's saying this to a group of people who are expecting Jesus to miraculously help them. So he's saying those people over there, the people who don't deserve God's help, God's helping them, but God isn't going to be helping, at least at the moment, one of us. And you can tell by the reaction that they catch what Jesus is saying and they don't particularly like it. So they take him, drag him to this cliff to throw him off, which you would expect he would not survive. Later Talmudic writing or later Jewish writing would say that this is a form of stoning to death. But they get the picture that Jesus is here at this moment not to help the the people in the synagogue, which would mean the people who are good church going folks who follow and love God, but he's looking for the others. He's looking for the outcasts, the people on the margin, the people who definitely don't deserve God's help. Now, as they are taking him to the cliff and they're about to throw him off, Jesus then walks through their midst. Now, at least one movie that I can think of that depicts this scene has Jesus vanish into thin air as though he were a magician. I don't think that that's the story that Luke is telling. I think this is somebody who ain't got time for this, and so he's just going to walk away. It's like that person who carries true authority doesn't need to throw their weight around. They knew who they are. They're not particularly offended by everyone's anger towards them. So he walks through the crowd because God has other things that he is going to do with him.